Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. Today we are going to look at the basic events in the central station tree. So this is basically going to be the first episode about how do we actually get the trains to run around the layout automatically. However, this is only the basic and the introduction. So you will get some of the hints today. In the later videos we'll see more about how to do it. As you can see, I got my central station tree with me. I got a link 88 that's used for feedback, and then I got the layout here. Remember that the two previous episodes in the automation series shows you how to make contact tracks, and it shows you how to connect the link 88 or the S88 actually to the tracks. So I will actually briefly in this video show how I have wired this setup here and how to create the contacts. However, for the full explanations, troubleshooting and so on, please go ahead and check out those videos. Enjoy the video. In this video I'm using the central station tree with software version 2.3.1-8. which is the Spring 2021 edition. In order to find the version number, you pull down the green tab on the top of the central station. Then you click the system here. If the central station comes up like this, where you see it says system/settings, that means it's in a sub-menu of the central station, then you need to use back. Then you see all the settings here. To the left-hand side in the blue, you see the different categories of settings at the bottom. You have to go to the next page. On the next page, you find a category called Info. You click on the Info, and here you actually find the software version 2.3.1-8. Now, if you have an older version, then you might be missing some features being shown in this video. If you have a newer version, most likely everything will work the same. Now, if you have the older version, then go ahead and update your central station to the latest version of the software. You can check out the video updating your Märklin central station tree or the CS3 episode 2 on this channel in order to see how to do this. Here we have the little layout we're going to use for playing with the central station tree and the events. You see over here we got link 88, which is actually connected through detection wires to the track. If we look at the small layout, it's basically an oval. And then there's two tracks down here we could pretend is a station. We got only two turnouts on this little layout. I have wired it such that basically the rail, which is here closest to me, so if we take this track or this track, the rail that's closest to me is the powered rail, and the rail that's furthest away from me is the contact rail. I have only one signal on here, which is over there. If we look at it, you see there's a detection wire going in here, and it's going through here and to this outer track here. Now let's look at how that's actually wired up. So I have the entire track here taken off. I'm just gonna, the wire here is making a bit of a mess. If we take the first piece of track here, you see there is actually an insulator on here. So that's the one that goes to the turnout over there. So this one here is the detection track, and that one is insulated from the turnout because we cannot make that into a contact area. If I take the first track off here, then you would see there's also an insulator here, which means basically this first track here that's closest to the turnout here to the right is actually a little contact area by itself. If we turn it around, we see that the wire is actually connected here to the contact rail, so the same one that has the insulator here, right? So that's the insulator, and here's the contact rail. So this is the only piece out of the entire curve here that actually is considered a contact area. That's not necessarily good practice, but I want this piece here to be the contact rail because this is where I want the locomotive to stop. All right, so if we continue down the track, you see there's also a wire over here. I'm a little unsure if I can, let me see if I can pull it closer. Okay, so here we actually have the central station 3 connected. So we got the brown and the red wire connected there. Now notice something interesting here. So if I hold the wires up like this, you see that the detection wires are connected to this end. If you look at the powered ones, they're actually connected to the other end. Well, why is that? Well, because let me just take this rail as an example. This is the detection rail. When we turn that around, that's this end here where you can connect to the detection rail. The other one here is the powered rail, so that's in essence the other end. So in this sense, you can always think about it as I always connect my detection wires to one end of the tracks and always the powered and signal and so on to the other end of the tracks. And then you will actually normally end up with connecting to the right end, so the detection wire goes on the detection rail and all the powered stuff goes on the powered rail. However, this is something you really need to look out for, because you want to make sure everything fits together. You want to make sure the signals are powered, and you want to make sure the detection rails are separated. If we look at how the link 88 is wired and the signal, we have that here. So we got the link 88 here. We got one wire going out here that goes into the central station 3. Then we got the other one, that's the power. Remember, the link 88 requires power as well. Let me see if I can move the link 88 closer. Well, not too well. I hope you can see it now here. So you see I got some wires on here. I got the brown wire, which I always must connect. And then I got the gray wires here connected as well. So the gray wires are the ones that goes to the track. All right. If we then turn around here and look at how this is connected up, you see the brown wire goes here and it actually goes to the track. Let me try and disassemble a little here. Okay, so we got this little piece of track here. Let me just zoom out a little. So this piece of track here, where I got the signal and I got an additional track here. This is actually where you see I have the brown wire from the link 88. If we turn that around, we see it's actually connected to this rail here. This rail here, if we turn it around, this is the powered rail. Remember before, the powered rail was the one that's closest to me. Well, it's a circle, so it's actually the outer rail on the circle, and the inner rail is the detection rail. So we want the brown wire here on the powered rail. If we go look here at my signal, first of all, I got some wires dangling. That's the stop section. I'm not using that. So then we need to look at the other wires. We turn it around and look at it, and you see here, I basically just powered the signal from the track. Again, I have to make sure the brown here is on the outer track, or the one closest to me on the circle, which is the powered rail and not the detection rail. So I all the time have to completely think about how do I power what and make sure what it is. And again here, if you see it, if you have the circle, they're all connected to the same end of the track. So you see the signals is in this end, the link 88 is in this end. If I wanted to connect a detection rail or a detection wire, it would be in this end. And actually, indeed I have. So you see this is my signal, which is the last one before this turnout. You see it's insulated here on the detection rail. If we turn it around and look here on the detection rail, indeed I do have a wire here. So the way to always verify and double check everything is powered stuff goes in one end of the rail and the detection wires in the other end. And that's because we have to distinguish between the powered rail and the detection rail. If we look at the schematics of the layout, it looks like this. So we got the oval, and then we got the 2 tracks down here that are basically a station. All the red here are the places I've put in the contact track. So I showed you just before on the layout, down here on the outer part of the oval, we got a contact track over here. We call that C1. I got one as well on the inner track here. I call that C2. You might ask, why is C2 2 track and C1 1 track? Well, that's because this is a curved turnout and it gets very narrow here. And I want the locomotive to stop sooner here on the inner track than the outer track to avoid that they actually will crash if I got 2 locomotives on there. Just before the station, I got a turnout, that's T1. And after the station, I got T2. Just before the station, coming into the station, I got here 2 track that are contact area C3, so that's contact C3. This is also where I have the signal. And why are these ones 2? Well, it's because I want to make sure that even at high speed, it managed to brake before it hits the turnout. Then a little further down, we got a C4 contact track, and then we got a C5 contact track. And as I said earlier, this is not following best practices, because normally what I would do if we look at the outer track at the station here is I would have a contact also for the other part of the platform area here, just to be sure that I can detect if there's anything left behind or if the train is sticking out anywhere. So here I have my central station tree. You see I've drawn the little layout here with the 2 turnouts and the 2 parallel track, and then a signal over here. Now what we're missing is the contacts, so we need to create these first. In order to do that, we pull down the green here at the top. We pull it so far down we can see our accessories, so we have those here. Then we go over and then we hit edit, and then we hit edit article list. Here what you got the article list. Up here in the top left hand corner, we make sure to go to the S88 we are using. I'm using the link S88-1, which is the one directly connected to it. So now I can create my first contact. I hit the plus. You see here it becomes C1. If it doesn't become C1, you click on the field. You can go in here and you can edit it, and then you can hit C1 and OK, and we got that. Then I need to make sure it's the one bus directly on the link 88. Yes, it is. I can't choose a module when it's direct, and then it's contact number 1. Now I need to create another 4 contacts. I need contact 1 through 5. So I hit plus, it comes up and say 2. So the central station tree is trying to be smart, and it's succeeding. It is actually number 2 I wanted to call the next one. And that is actually contact number 2, as you see here below. I hit 3, 4, and 5, and I click on each of them and make sure that it actually is the right one. So everything looks good. And now I hit OK. So now we see we got the 5 contacts here. So let me also quickly put them on the track. In order to do that, let me only filter for the S88. So I hit the filter button, I hit S88, and now I only have my contacts. I go and I edit my trackboard page, and now I can pull them down. So my C1 here, I want that one down here. My C2, I want that one over here. I want my C3 up here. Oh, maybe I didn't succeed too well here. Let me move it down, and then we have it here. And then we can see there's a small attachment point. I attach it on there. And then we got C4. Where was it? C4 was, that was up on the top. So I attached that one here. Okay. And then I got C5 over here. All right. And we have everything here now. So this looks like the track plan, or at least I hope it does. Let's. I'm gonna pull this down again. I'm gonna go out of edit mode here. Before we create our first event, we want to put the central station tree in the extended event mode. We do that by we pull down on the green tab here at the top. It's enough to see the menu. We go to the system over here at the top left. We click on that one. You see it's some random place in the menu right now that we can hit back. If you are on this page here, what you can do is you can click the track here. When you click the track, you see here there's one called Events Extended Mode. I actually already have it turned on. This one here you need to click on, and you see when you click it on, it tells you that the events will become more elaborate and more complex. For many reasons, I suggest you just go ahead and do this because it will enable some of the things you will see in this video, but also in some of the future videos there will be more abilities, for example macros. So you hit OK with this one, and now you can go out of the menu, and now we have additional features in the events. Let's look at how we create events on the central station tree. So we go to the top, we pull down the tab, and then we can see the menu here, the events menu over here. We click on the events menu, and in here we can add events. So let me just give you a couple of examples of events. So I'm gonna create an event here. So this one here, you see an extra window comes up. So the top window here is the overview of all the events, and the bottom window here is where we create the event itself. Now the overview here, I can put that away because then it will make it easier. I'll pull this one up a little because the way we create events is actually we drag and drop them. So for example, I can take the T1 here, I can select that one, and I can put it up here. And then now you see it's part of the event list. In the same fashion, I could take my signal here, and I can drag that up as well. Notice I basically just keep it touched down even though this thingy pops up here. So now I already got two elements in my event list here. So that could be that really I don't want the signal here to turn it red, but rather green. So I click on this element, and here comes the settings for the event element. And in here I can change multiple things. First of all, up here in the item you can see if I wanted another signal, and I did have other signals, I could choose that in here. But I can also choose the position here. So maybe I want to proceed slowly here. Okay, so I hit OK. And I actually want this event to do a proceed slowly and then turn the turnout. Actually, I would probably rather turn the turnout and then do the proceed slowly with the signal. So I want to make sure that the turnout is correct before I change the signal. So what is it really I'm trying to do here? Well, I'm trying to get into this platform here. So I'm going to call the bottom platform down here platform 1, and the next one platform 2. Let me just move them a little up. So platform 1 down here and platform 2. So this is when I want to drive to platform 2. All right. So, and here you have all the essence of an event. I can give it a name, and then I can tell it what to do. So in this case, it should turn the turnout right, and then set the signal. So let me just go down here and make sure the turnout is straight. Right now I'm in edit mode. So you see here, I'm in edit mode. I clicked events, and then the overview comes up, and you can see that's kind of behind my event list. So if I move this one down here, so I got my event list here, and here I got the event I'm making. I want to go out of edit mode. I close this one again. I don't necessarily need to close it. It's just so I easier can see what's going on. I'm moving this window up so I can see what's going on. And now I'm actually ready to execute my event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the start over here, or the play. And as you can see, there's a red cursor here. That one will actually move along as the event plays. And then you will see both on the layout and here on the central station 3, the signal and the turnout change. So I hit start now. And you saw the signal changed to approach slowly and the turnout changed. So this is one way I can use my events. What else can I do? So let me close this window. Let me go into the events. Let me make a new event. So what I did show right now was how to affect the accessories on there. We can do the same actually with a locomotive. So let me make a new event. I'm inside the edit of the event. You see there's a little green tick mark up here. I can hit the plus. So now I actually want to drive the locomotive. And in the same fashion, I basically just drag elements from the locomotive onto the event here. Okay, so I go down here at the bottom. I pull up so I can see my locomotives. I have this lint on the track. I actually drag this one up and into my event. And now you can see a picture appeared of the train and the speed. So now I can actually set the speed here, for example. So maybe I want to set the speed to, let me just choose a random number here. So 50, okay. And I hit OK on here. But I can also do other things. So if I pull out here to the left, here I got my lint as well. Let me just make sure I can only see one row. If it's not over here, remember you can basically just take it and pull it over, and then it will be the one here. So what if I want to make a little startup sequence here with my lint? Maybe the first thing that happens is, well, maybe the driver gets in, he turns on the headlight, so I can drag my headlight on here, I drag it in between, and you can see now there's an element here that's basically the headlight. So I can click on this one here, and in here you can change two things. You can change the function. So if I decided it wasn't the light function, I can also choose another function in here as well. By the way, in order to get out of this, you just click next to it. And then I can choose the value. So this is white, which means that it's not on. I actually want it to turn on, and then I hit OK. So now we see my event right now. It will turn on the light, and then it will actually drive 50 kilometers an hour, drive at the speed 50. So let me just go back here, because when I dragged it changed the elements here. So maybe after I turn on the light, maybe I want to turn on the engines out. So I press this one here and I drag it in. And now you see I dragged it a little too long. There's actually a black cursor for where it's dropping. But I want to shift the position of these. How do I do this? Well, I long press on my engine here. Now you see it first was dark blue and now it turns light blue. So now it's light blue, and then I keep pressing and then I can move it over. And now we have it here. All right. So I click on the engine sound. And I really want it to turn on, so that's when it's yellow. I want to have a delay after it turns on, so I want it to delay at least 5 seconds. Okay, and in the same fashion, I can take the interior light. So we have over here, this is the interior light. I drag that in. Okay, and I want the interior light to be turned on as well. And I want to add a delay of 5 seconds here as well. So what is it really this event is doing now? Well, it's turning on the light. And if we look at it, well, let me just put in a slight delay. So let's put in a 2-second delay. So it turns on the light, waits 2 seconds. Then it turns on the engine. And we go in and see. Then it waits 5 seconds. Okay. And then it turns on the interior light. Then it waits 5 seconds. and then it will actually drive with a speed of 51. Again, don't forget to give it a good name. I'm just going to click on the field. I'm going to give it, usually what I give it is a name that makes sense to me. So this is the lint, and I actually want it to drive. All right. So now I have an event here, and we can try this one out as well. So I'm just gonna move this one down a little. You can see we are here still in edit mode. You need to get out in edit mode to play the event. If you look at the event we have here, you see the start is actually gray. As soon as I go out of edit mode, now I can actually play it. So we look at the track, and we keep an eye on this cursor here as well. This will move forward as the things happen. So I hit start now. You see it turned the light on, it's waiting. Turn the engine on, it's waiting. Turn the interior light on, it's waiting. And now it starts driving. So you saw me just create events using the drag and drop method. If we go back into events, and I'm going to hit edit again, so edit event, and now I'm going to create a new event. You see there's actually a record button up here. You can also use that one. So what it actually will do is it will record everything you do. To me, however, it's not really a good option, because if, for example, you change a turnout and then change a signal, then whatever time you pause in between, it will also record that. And that may or may not be what you want. I actually prefer the drag and drop method. To me, it makes a lot more sense, and it's easy to add the delays where you need them. Because in truth, most of the time, you don't need the delays. You saw before I created an event that changed the signal and the turnout. Typically there you don't need the delays. There's other places where you will need it. For example, we made the startup sequence, there you would need it. So typically I would not recommend to use the record option. However, if you want to, you just hit record and then you do whatever you need to do on the central station 3, and then you go back and then hit stop. All right. The other thing we should talk a little about is that an event can actually have many different accessories. So we saw that here in the platform 2, right? You see there's many different accessories that can be in one event. However, if we create a new event here, so now I have this event here, and I want to have 2 locomotives in there. So let's say I drag this one up, and I want to set this one to speed, 65 it turned out to be. And then I drag another locomotive up there. See, I cannot do that. So one event can only control one locomotive. So you have to think about that when you are making your events. Now let's look at how some of the functions work on a locomotive. So I'm going to create a new one here again. I'm going to open my list here of functions. We saw before that I could drag in the engine here. When I click on the engine, I can basically turn it off. Let me open it again. I could have it running for 10 seconds, and then after that, then I could actually turn it off again in this fashion, right? So now I have an event that would first turn the engine on for 10 seconds and then turn it off. So that works well when you have the functions that are switching functions. But what if you have a momentary function? So let me delete these 2 again, and let me try with this one down here, which is an announcement. if I have this one here, and you can hear it already started, and this is also what it will do when you play the event. It will actually turn it on and automatically turn it off. So it will follow the normal rules of the decoder and use the sound as it normally is. So as another example, if I take here and I drag in the horn, and remember the horn here, or at least on this one here, it actually how long you press it in. So if I want a 3-second horn, I press 3 here, or choose 3, and then I go back, and then I turn the horn off. If we go out of edit mode, and now we try and play the entire sequence here. So I'm gonna hit the play, and we can see the difference between these two functions. So I hit start. So what actually happened there? Well, first of all, it sounded a little confusing. What happened was it turned on the announcement that was here. Oh, let me just go into edit mode, edit event. I had no delay. So what does that mean? It started the sound. This one was a momentary switching function, so it'll automatically turn off. But there was no delay, so it immediately went on to the horn. So you actually heard both sounds on top of each other. And what you also heard was that the horn was on for 3 seconds, because I have a delay here for 3 before it carries on to the next one. So everything got a little confusing. So in truth, if you wanted this, you need to know how long is the momentary function, and you should put in a delay on it and make sure the delay is long enough such that you won't do anything else. However, this could also be handy, for example, if you want the station announcement to come while you start driving, right? So you have to think about how you are making all the things fit together. The other thing that's a little funky is, well, you see I keep on dragging, right? I can drag all kinds of stuff. I can also drag the direction here if I wanted to. I can click on the direction. I can change the direction. Be careful when you're changing direction. Make sure that you do like you would when you're doing it manually. You would go down to 0, and then you would wait and make sure it stopped, and then you would change the direction. So don't forget that. The thing that's a little odd is the speed. So if I'm just closing the overview over here, you can see the speed is over here. Now I'm going to put it in stop mode first to make sure the locomotive doesn't drive. But now I have it in stop mode. So now I'm going to try, I click on this one here. You see I'm clicking on it, and I try and drag it over. You cannot do it. So if I hadn't put it in stop mode, my locomotive would actually start driving. So here's another tip. And I didn't do it before, and I'm sorry, I really should have. Whenever you're making events, consider putting it in stop mode. If you're doing the record, it might make sense so you can see what's happening. But for most cases, you don't want to accidentally drive along, accidentally turn a turnout if some other locomotive is going on the layout or anything like that. So most of the time, I do everything in stop mode. However, you saw I did not manage to pull it in. So how do I get the speed? Well, I actually go down and I find my locomotive, and then I drag it in, and then you can see you get the speed. And here it shows the last speed, which I actually had set over here. You can click on it, and then you can change it to 0, for example, like that. So the speed is the only one that's a little odd. You cannot drag the speedometer onto there. You have to drag the locomotive. So the events we have created so far are manual events. Why are they manual? Well, essentially because you have to trigger them, you have to hit play. You can also make automatic events. So let's try that out. We go into the events again. We make sure it's in edit mode. It already is in edit mode. If it was not, you hit edit here, edit event, okay? And now we can add a new one. And let's try and make it automatic this time. So I hit the plus. And what you see here is one part of the window I haven't talked about is over here where it says manual mode. So manual mode is the default. However, you can have something else trigger it. It could be a contact, for example. So if we go down here and look, we got C1 here. So maybe if I just pull this up a little, the tracks we got down here, maybe when the train comes in, I want it to alternate between going down past C1 on platform 1 or going past C2 on platform 2. So let's try that out. I'm going to close this list. I'm going to move it a little up so we can see everything here. So basically, what would I like to do? Well, if the train comes here and you see the turnout T1 is straight and it goes and then it comes to the C1, then I would like it to change the turnout such that next time it will go on the platform 2. So how do I do that? Well, I use my drag and drop again. So I basically take my C1, I drag it up here on top of the manual mode, and now you can see there's a little locomotive. So now it doesn't say manual, now there's a little locomotive here. And it says C1 down here. So now it's basically going to be triggered by the contact. Again, we can click on this one and we come in and there's a lot of settings. Over here, you see the position. So the position is yellow. So it means when it's occupied, something will actually happen. I hit OK. And what is it we actually want there to happen? Well, I want my T1, so I want my turnout to actually change. So I click on that and I change it such that it turns, so it will go into platform 2 here. I want to give this a name. I'm going to give it the name. Usually what I do is I would give it the name C1. And this is basically when it's occupied, or I actually prefer to call it arrival. So I put in arrival here. So that means it arrives at C1. So basically now I have an event when it arrives at C1. So that's that trigger there. Then it will change to the turnout change direction. All right. I close this one. Let me make one more because I want such that when it comes into platform 2, then it goes back to the platform 1. Okay, you have to do a lot of rearranging of the windows, as you see I do here, in order to make it easy to drag and drop. So now I want one when it's C2. Then I want the turnout to actually go straight. So this one here, I'm going to drag this window up. This one here is actually C2, and this is arrival. You could also use the word occupied. All right. So if we look at the event list now I got 2 automatic events here. You can also see there's a little train icon up here in the corner. So I got an automatic C1 arrival and an automatic C2 arrival. So let's try and see how this works. So as you see now, my locomotive is actually on the track and it's actually on C1. I was clicking on the C1 when I dragged and dropped, so that's why you see the state is not correct here. So we would like to see what happens when it comes around and it hits the C1. So I'm going to show the C1 here. I'm going to go out of edit mode and I'm going to close that window. Okay. And then I'm going to go out of stop mode. And actually, one thing I forgot is I want to use the event we already created to start the locomotive. So that's this one here. All right. So I want to use this one. So I'm going to start using the manual. And then I'm going to see what happens when it triggers the automatic. So I'm going to hit start now. Turning on sound, turning on interior light. And now it's leaving. Now I want to look at my C1 here. So you see the train is driving around. You also see the contacts trigger as it drives around. Well, actually you can't see it because this window is on top. And you saw there, as soon as C1 hit, it actually changed the turnout. We see the train keep on driving. And it hit the turnout and it went straight now. And you see it driving along again. And now it comes over to the C1 again. And it changes. By the way, did you notice before that the C2 looked a little weird because it looked like it was occupied before the train come? That's what happens when you drag and drop. So the first time it comes over, it may not do it correctly. But now you see the C2 is free and it will arrive there. And you saw the turnout change. So in this fashion, we can actually make automatic events as well that are triggered. And you can make many interesting things out of this. We can also make the train stop when it arrives at a signal. For example, here at C3, we could actually have this one trigger that the locomotive stops. So let's try that out. We go into events, I edit my events, I create a new one. I'm going to close this window in behind. I'm going to drag my C3 up here. Oh, that was not my C3. All right, let me see if I can get a hold of it here. Yes, C3. So basically you see when the position is yellow, so it gets occupied. Then I could actually stop my locomotive. So when I come here to the signal, I want the speed of the locomotive to be 0. Again, I give it a good name. So this was C3 arrival. Okay. We try this out. We go out of edit mode, and we we drive the locomotive again. So we get ready to. Oh, am I not in? Oh, here. Now I'm out of edit mode. And by the way, you don't need to open the event to hit play. You can just hit it here. So now I'm gonna hit play. And you see it goes through the startup sequence again. You see the train drives around. Oh, let me just click this off. Okay. C4, C3. Here. And you see the train actually stops. By the way, here's another trick you can do. If you noticed, I actually clicked on it and it will trigger. So for example, if I click on C2 down here now, see it actually triggers and it triggers the event. So you can do this if you want to do testing. Just be careful now, because now you see, let me just drag it here to the middle of the screen. Now you see both C1 and C2 makes it look like they're actually occupied. But if you look at the layout, they are not. So it can be good for testing, but you got to be careful with it, right? So the event, automatic event we just created here on the C3. So if we pull it down, where we have the C3, where we stop the locomotive, it's not really a good event. And why is that? Let's go in and look at the events. Let's go in edit mode here again. So this was the C3 arrival, which was this one here. So you see it triggered, and then we actually have the locomotive go to 0. So why is that not a good event? Well, first of all, what happens if it's a different locomotive that comes there? So now a different locomotive will come to the signal. When that locomotive hit the signal, it will actually trigger the lint to stop, not the locomotive that comes to the signal. So this is not necessarily a good way. There's a way around this. You can actually shift it around. So instead of the trigger stopping the locomotive can detect whether or not it reaches a certain point and then stop itself. So let me clean up in some of these events. I'm going to delete all of these arrival ones. So C1 arrival, C2 arrival, C3 arrival. I'm actually also going to delete the platform 2 since we don't need that one. So now I want to go in and edit my locomotive. So we have that here. I'm going to remove the overview so we a little better can see. So let's review what is it the locomotive does. Well, it's basically a startup sequence. Turn on headlights, start engine, turn on interior lights, and then drive. Now, what I would like it to do is actually to stop over here at the signal. So how would I do that? Well, I take the C3 and I drag that one in. Oh, and it turned out I got the wrong one. Yeah, see, this is a problem when they're close together, so try and grab a little further away. We can drag that in, and we drag that in now. And as you see here, as soon as we drag it in, there's a little question mark. You see, none of the other elements have a question mark. So what does a question mark actually mean? Well, if we go in here, you see it's actually not by default on action, but it's by default on condition. It's because truly this is a contact. It should detect something. It shouldn't do an action, right? However, what we want it to do is we want to put it in condition delay. So that will mean that the event will wait till this position is achieved. If I click OK, it actually looks a little better. So you see there's a W up here. So it actually waits now till C3 is triggered, it's occupied, or you could say it's arrived at C3. So basically the event now will do the startup sequence, it will run the locomotive. When it arrives at C3, then it will continue after here. What do I want it to do when it comes to C3? Well, I actually want it to stop, right? So I want it to stop here at C3. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to continue if the signal turns green. So I already by accident dragged the signal up here. Otherwise, you just basically drag it up again. I can click on the signal here and I can go in and look at it. I can also change the condition here. So I change it to condition, I change it to delay, and I change it to green. And we hit OK, and we go look at it, because it makes a little more sense here. It says wait till the signal is green. Cool. So what do I want it to do if the signal is green? Well, let me just say I want it to drive with a reduced speed, so maybe only speed 31 when it's coming into the station. All right, so now let's try this out. And since I've been dragging and dropping, you see the C3 got the yellow. I click on this one just to make sure that it actually matches what you see on the layout. I go out of this one here. I go out of edit mode. I'm gonna show my my event here so we can see what happens and compare it. I'm moving this one a little up. And now we are ready to drive the locomotive. So I will go up and hit the start button. It goes through the startup sequence. And now you see the locomotive drives, and you see it waits there till C3 gets activated. It drives around. It's at C5 now, C4, and now it hits C3, and you see as soon as it hits C3, the cursor moved past it, it did the speed 0, and now you can see the locomotive is parked in front of the signal. Now the interesting part is, will it actually drive when we turn the signal green? So I Let me just move this a little in so we can see it. So now it's waiting here for a green signal, and then it will turn at a slower speed. So we go over here, we click on the signal, I turn it green, and you saw that it actually completed the event. You see the train drives, and now it's actually driving at speed 31. So we actually did succeed. So what is really going on here? What have we learned so far? Well, a contact, let me just turn off all the sound here. A contact track can actually trigger an event. You can manually have an event. You can manually have an event triggered, and then you need to hit start. But inside your events, and by the way, this doesn't matter whether or not it's an automatic or manual event. Inside the event, you can do all kinds of things with your locomotive. However, only one locomotive at a time. You can do with many accessories. You can put in weights, so it actually will wait till a certain condition occurs. Here we saw the first condition I want to wait for is the locomotive actually arrives at C3. And the next one is that I wanted to actually wait for the signal to turn green. Let's look at another way to make an automatic event. So we go back to events. We hit the edit event. When I create my event here, I have my signal down here. So in essence, I would like the signal to automatically turn red when the train passes. And when is that? That's actually when it leaves the C3. So if I take my C3, I keep getting a hold of the signal instead. So the trick is to grab it as far away from the signal as possible. So you see when I drag it up, you see the train is before the contact here, which basically means upon arrival or when it gets occupied. I can click on this one here. I can change the position to gray. So basically what it means is when the contract C3 turns gray, then I want the event to trigger. I hit OK. And now you see the locomotive is on the other side of the contact over here. So that basically means when it leaves the contact, then it will trigger something. And what I wanted to trigger is actually, I wanted to turn the signal red. So we let it turn the signal red here. Before I test it out, I make sure this one or the contact here is as it is out on the layout. So let's try this out. So we go out of edit mode. Okay. And then we try it out. And now we see the train approaching. It stops at the signal. Nice. We turn the signal green. The train drives. And when it leaves the C3, you see the signal turns red. Excellent, just like we wanted. So I've made the layout a little more complex. If you look here at my central station 3, I've added some signals. Some more signals. The idea is that they will show whether or not you can drive forward. So for example, if something here is stopped at C5, which you see it is because it's yellow, then the signal before it, S7, is red because nobody can enter C5. In the same fashion, if somebody is parked at C1, then the S1 signal over here is red because you cannot proceed because there's somebody there. However, if you look at the C3, nobody is parked there, so the signal before that S5 is green. The C4, the signal before that is green. So if we look at the events, so I'm gonna open my events here again. I'm gonna go into edit mode. So each of these, as you see, I got an event for every time the contact gets free. So if we take the C1 down here, I'm just going to move it a little, well, actually let me open it up. So this is the C1 free. I'm going to close that one in behind. So what happens when C1 is free? So when this one is free, and remember the train is going this direction, so up, it's not going this way, right? But it's going here to the right and up. So when it leaves here, I want my signal S7 to turn red, such that there will be no train trailing me. In the same fashion, now since this one is unoccupied, then the S1 can turn green. So now the S1 can turn green and a new train can drive in. And you see that's what I got here in the event. So if we look at the C1, I click on that one, we see the position is gray. Okay, so it's actually, and we see the locomotive on the other side of the contact, so it's when the locomotive leaves the contact, so it's a C1 free. Then we will make the signal red and then allow trains to come in. And by the way, it's exactly the same fashion with the other ones. If I just randomly take C4 here, so let me just make sure I can see C4, so it's here. So we got C4 here. Oh, oops. Yeah, it jumps around a little. So here's C4. So when it leaves C4, I want my S5, so S5 here to turn red, and I want my S6 to turn green. So in essence, it would mean as the train moves around, then the signal behind it will, the signal it just passed will turn red, and then the signal before that will turn green to allow a train come in. The other thing I've done is I've extended my my event here for the lint train. First of all, I did a little interesting thing here. You see the very first I put in here now. This is not a W up here, it's a question mark. So if I click on this one here, what does it actually say? It says if position is yellow, then continue. However, that kind of doesn't make sense. Well, actually, yes, it does. It means that if it's yellow, then you're allowed to continue, right? So if, for example, my contact down here is gray and I hit play on this one here, then it would stop when it comes here and it would actually terminate the event. Such that if I hit play now, then the play here and the event will only play if the C1 is occupied. And then I just have to hope that that is actually the locomotive in there. Unfortunately, the CS3 doesn't know which locomotive is where. Okay? So we have the same thing here. It has the startup sequence. Then we come over to the green light. It waits for a green light, so it's parked at C1. We know that because we had that little safety up here. So it'll wait till S7 turns green. Then it will drive. Then it will drive until it hits C5. Then it will stop there. Then it will wait for C6, right? We have a wait for C6 to turn green. Then it will drive. Then when it hits C4, okay, so when C4 is occupied, then it will stop. Then when S5 is green, and so on, right? So why do I need all of these small steps? Well, I need them because, you know, I don't want the train to accidentally drive until it's in front of the signal. So that's why I have these alternating all the time. So as an example here, I don't want it to wait for the S5, which is this one, until it arrives at the S4. You know, if it's over here and the S6 is red and the S5 happens to be green, I don't want the train to drive. I don't want it to drive till it arrives at S4, okay? If we go to the end of this event, I have also, you see, it ends here when it comes to the signal that's actually on the layout and it turns green, it will go slower into, and then when it hits the C1, it will stop, and then it will have a stop sequence where it turns off the light and the sound. Now, the other interesting thing here is, notice if we look at the central station tree, and now if we look at the layout, there are more signals on the central station tree than there are on the layout. So the S5, 6, and 7 here are actually virtual. So you can actually have signals that you do not have on your layout, but you have them on your central station tree to actually make it easier to actually program the events. All right, so now let's try this event. So I'm going to go into the events, make sure I'm out of edit mode. I'm going to click on the lint drive here. I'm going to click on start. And we wait for the startup sequence. And now you see it's waiting for the red light before it continues. All right. By the way, one thing you need to make sure of every time you start something, some events or something, are all the preconditions correct, right? So if you look at the layout, I got a locomotive on C5, so S7 needs to be red. I got a locomotive on C1, so S1 needs to be red. And by the way, I want the turnout straight, so it will hit the route that it's actually programmed to. So you always need to make sure that everything is absolutely correct before you drive. Okay, so now we have the lint actually waiting. I did not make any events for my BR232, which is the one you see on the layout on the C5. However, I'm just going to drive this one forward. And remember, as soon as this one leaves the C5, then then first the S6 will turn red, and then the S7 will turn green, and you will see the lint move forward. So I'm going to drive this forward slowly. And you saw there, it actually allowed the lint to move forward because it turned green. And we look down here, as soon as the lint leaves, the S7 turns red. You saw the lint when it comes up to the signal, that's red, it actually stops. I didn't entirely put my BR232 on 0, so it was creeping along, and as you saw, when it crept along, it actually allowed the lint to move forward. By the way, you have a funny situation here now, which is one you have to really consider and potentially avoid. You see the lint is so long that it blocks both C4 and C5. So this is something you have to think about whether or not that's okay. All right, I have my BR232. It's got a green signal, so I can move it forward. You see the lint is waiting patiently behind. I move it forward. As soon as it leaves, the signal turns red, and you see that on the physical layout as well. Okay, and now we got the BR232 down on C1, and the lint comes up and breaks. And now I can take my BR232 or my Ludmilla and drive the last piece here. And you see the signal actually physically turns to green and the lint drives in. However, it does it slowly because this was an approach, and I put that in an event. I wanted to drive slowly until it hits the C1, and it's there now. So when it's at the C1, it will actually turn off the engine and the light. Excellent. Now I want to look at what happens when I just drive the lint without a locomotive in front. Will it actually stop every time and start at every signal if it actually already is green? And actually, in truth, it will not, because it will jump so fast through the event that you'll basically just see the speed flicker, but on the layout, the locomotive will still continue. So I'm gonna go over to my event. I'm gonna be ready to start the locomotive. So I'm hitting play now. If we look at the event, it's going through the startup sequence, and now it's waiting for green. Okay, let's make a little room here on the screen. So you see I got the signal down here, I change the signal to green, and we see what happens. And we see the lint basically just continues happily along. It doesn't stop now because all the signals are green. And yes, in the event there was a speed 0 and then a speed 50, for example, if it is green. But as you see here on the layout, you basically don't notice it. It just keeps on driving. So this is really, really nice. So even though you have a stop in the event and then immediately another speed, then it will basically just very quickly do the speed 0 and then carry on and then set the correct speed again. As the final thing, let's look at how we can group events and how we can actually edit events. So we pull down in the red in the top, we click events. If you go into edit events, then you'll actually be able to edit the events. Now let's say I want to group some of these events. So maybe all the ones that are detecting the signals, maybe I want to group these. So I open one, I click out here, and then you go down here and you see down below I can choose a group. If I pull down in that, it doesn't say anything. I can hit on again. Yeah, funny name. I'm not quite sure why it's called that. And now you get this dialog box up, and then you could call this, for example, signals. So these are events that are related to signals, and you see now it's in group signal. I can close this one. I can do the same thing with the next one here. I can put it in signal, and let me just put one more in group signal. Okay, like that. And then the cool thing is, when you have got here the event overview, then up here where it says group, you can actually choose all of those that are only in the signal group. So in this way you can actually edit your, or let's say group all your events and easily get an overview of them. And don't forget, if you really need an overview, you can pull down in the black tab here, and then you can see many more. And you see just above the black tab, there's a little white one here. You'll be able to scroll through several pages as well when it gets to it. Now let me go back to the all. If you want to edit an event, you click on it basically. You are in here. You can rearrange stuff. So maybe I don't want the engine sound here to start until the interior light is on. So you hold this one in. You saw first it was dark blue, and now it's light blue. When it's light blue, you keep pressed down on it there and slide your finger to the right, for example here, and then it moves over. You can also slide it all the way to the beginning here. So that's the way you move items around. Over here, where I got an event, if I click on this one here, remember you can edit the position or the action and condition and so on, but you can also edit what item it is on. So maybe this wasn't signal 7, but maybe it was signal 1 instead, and then you can hit OK, and then you see it actually changes here as well. So it's actually relatively easy to move around and re-edit it. You can delete elements as well by clicking on the little cross, and you saw I just did that. This came out. You can hit OK. You can carry on deleting. And don't forget, in order to add, you basically drag it back on there again. I can close this one, and I can delete the entire event by clicking on the X. It asks you, are you sure you want to delete it? You hit yes, and you're OK. And that's basically how you manage and edit all your events. And you can also control the events. How do you do that? Well, you pull down in the green, as I've done here already. You go into the events. Now the interesting thing is, if any events are running, whenever you hit edit events, they're all gonna stop, they're all gonna terminate, and they're all gonna reset. So if you get in trouble, that's one way to go in and edit and out again. However, there's also the control here. So inside the events, I got the control. So I can block events. So that basically means I can prevent events from firing or triggering, and this is especially interesting for the automatic event. So if I want to kind of stop everything slowly where it is, then I can use this one. I can terminate, which basically means all of them are terminated and reset. I can stop and then continue. I must admit, the stop and continue, be careful with that. That can be dangerous. I tried using the terminate events before. However, if you really get in trouble, don't forget the stop on the central station tree. Hit the stop button, and that's why there's a big, nice physical stop button on the device as well. Hit that one if you see something going wrong, if there's any danger of trains colliding or anything like that. Don't forget to use it. Whew! That was a rather lengthy video. It took me quite some time to record and even storyboard as well. And do remember, we only got through basic events. Please have patience when you're doing automation. It's a complex topic. There is lots of things that can go wrong. It looked nice and easy in this video. However, I had to do some trial and errors here and there. So always have patience when you're doing automation. As you also saw, there were several ways you could actually, for example, stop a locomotive in front of the signal and so on. You saw I cheated a little with not having full blocks, only contact areas where I wanted to stop the locomotives and so on. So the idea is, in the next automation series, I will talk a little about best practices, how do you make it work, and then I will give some templates for how to do things. For example, how to automate a shadow station, how to make a little more automatic train station, what you need to think about when you're mixing manual and automatic, because maybe you don't want everything just moving by itself, maybe you want to play with it as well. What can you do? And that's going to take a lot of videos to actually get there. I really hope you liked this video. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up or the like button. Please do consider subscribing to the channel and click the little notification bell such that you will be notified of upcoming videos. Enjoy!